On today's show, a world-class nail-biter of a game in Halifax between Canada and Slovakia, and which prospects stood out in the other three quarterfinals games from yesterday's action. All coming up on Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, I break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi Kalakesh. I'm a scout and prospect analyst across multiple platforms, including this one. And on today's show, we'll be breaking down the quarterfinals action from yesterday's games. We're going to start off with the big one, Canada versus Slovakia, an extremely tight game complete with a goalie standing on his head, Connor Bedard breaking some records, of course, and some more standouts from that game. Then we'll move on to two blowouts in our second segment. We'll start with USA versus Germany and then move on to Czechia versus Switzerland. And then finally, in our final segment, we'll look at another great game, this time between eternal rivals Sweden and Finland. This game had a bunch of standouts as well. It was another tight game. So we're going to go through a few of them and how they performed in this game. Then end it out with the standouts for the tournament for the team that got knocked out of the quarterfinals. Now, before we get into any of that, just remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and to follow us along on your favorite podcasting platforms and make us your first listen of the day. It's always very much appreciated. Now, to get right into it, Canada versus Slovakia. What a game. This was an outstanding game. I want to start with the lines, though, for Canada, to show you guys what it looked like on the starting roster. So nothing changed in the top six. Shane Wright's line stayed the same. Connor Bedard's line stayed the same. But Adam Fantilli was dropped down to the fourth line and was replaced with Zach Ostapchuk of the Ottawa Senators. So that was one change that occurred. So Ostapchuk was to the right of Zach Dean and Nathan Gaucher on the third, and it was Fantilli on the fourth line. And then another difference in the lineup for Canada is that Colton Dach, unfortunately, his tournament was ended by an injury in the previous game for Canada. So Owen Beck was called up for Mississauga for Team Canada and was their 13th forward in this game. Now, to start off the game and just sort of summarize what happened. So Canada jumped on the board early. Logan Stankoven picked off a breakout pass by Szymon Niemiec of the New Jersey Devils, and he found who else but Connor Bedard all alone against a poor Adam Gajan in net for Slovakia. Bedard just doesn't miss those, and he puts Canada up 1-0 6 minutes into the game. That goal, by the way, made Connor Bedard the all-time scoring leader for Canada at the World Juniors with his 15th goal in 13 games. Jordan Eberle had 14 goals in 12 games for Canada previously and was holding the record. So now Bedard is clear of everyone else in terms of goal-scoring records at the World Juniors for Canada. And when you look at the history of Canada at this tournament, it's pretty impressive to see Connor Bedard at the top of that list, above names like Eric Lindros and the like. He played great in this tournament. But moving on to the second period, Canada gets a power play. Connor Bedard, again, plays it down to Brennan Othman near the goal mouth, and he plays it cross ice to a wide open Dylan Gunther with a wide open net. He doesn't miss those. He's money on the power play, and he puts in his fifth of the tournament to make it 2-0 for Canada. 2 minutes later, though, Slovakia wins yet another faceoff. This was a big problem for Canada in this game. This time they win a faceoff in the offensive zone. Szymon Niemiec from the blue line rips a wrister. It deflects off Libor Niemiec's pants in the front of the net, and Slovakia cuts the lead in half. Then Canada were quick to respond, though, which is promising when you go down a goal against a team like Slovakia, who have already pulled off an upset against USA. We'll talk about that later. But Zach Dean fed Zach Ostapchuk on the breakout from the defensive zone. Ostapchuk walks in to the offensive zone and just rips a wrister perfect in the top corner past Adam Gajan to put Canada 3-1 up. But then after that, Peter Repchik walks around the Canadian defenders and the back of the net off the rush, and then he finds a wide open Robert Bacco, who's a defenseman who pushed into the play offensively all the way to the net. Bacco puts it in, and that's 3-2 heading into the third period. Now, the issue arose when Canada kept losing faceoffs left and right, especially Shane Wright, who had a really tough night in the faceoff circle for Canada. Now, I'm just saying this, but maybe they could have played Owen Beck more than two shifts, perhaps, because Owen Beck, he was called up from Canada after Doc's injury in their last game. But despite the fact that Owen Beck is one of the best faceoff takers in the CHL and the fact that he made some great plays on his two shifts, he never saw a single faceoff. Now, granted, he did join the team late. He didn't even get a practice. They just sort of bumped him right into the lineup. But still, I understand the narrative of not wanting to let a player who didn't even practice with the team just jump in and play. But Owen Beck played really well in his two shifts, and I was surprised to see him play only two shifts, which were on the fly, and not take a single face-off in a game where Canada was struggling on the face-off circle. I think Owen Beck would have been a smart decision. But either way, Canada was outchanced with the Slovaks down a goal and determined to tie it. But Thomas Milic and Tyson Hines combined for three amazing saves, especially at the start of the third period. And then in the third period, though, after a lost faceoff, again by Canada, Philip Mechar went to work in the offensive zone. He spun off of Olin Zellweger down behind the net, and then delayed and found a perfect passing lane and hits it right on Libor Nemetz's stick, who's wide open. He takes a one-timer, and it is tied 3-3 to tie the game. That was Nemetz's second goal of the game after the deflection that came off of Shimon Nemetz's stick. So you could feel the nervousness in Halifax at that point. Canada was tied with Slovakia with half the period left to play and the Slovaks buzzing. It wasn't good news for the Canadians at all. But the good thing was every time Connor Bedard got the puck, every time he hopped on the ice, amazing things were happening for Canada. He hit the post. He fed Shane Wright, who also hit the post, but Adam Gayon was just standing on his head and really just working the net extremely well for Slovakia. But then Shimon Nemec cross-checked Connor Bedard's in the numbers in front of the Slovak goal with 30 seconds left in regulation. That's a penalty every time in international hockey. But the world seemed to stop for Slovakia for a second there as the refs went to the iPad to determine whether Nemec hit Bedard in the back of the head or the numbers. If he hit him in the back of the head, that's a pretty much guaranteed match penalty in a 5-minute major for Canada with 30 seconds left in the game. That was bad news. Luckily for Nemec, who, by the way, was complaining in the penalty box the whole time because, in his opinion, Connor Bedard had dived and all that stuff. He was giving it to the refs. But regardless, he got 2 minutes at the end of the day because it was in the numbers, and this game went to overtime. Now, Canada hit a couple posts. It created a great scoring chance where Wright almost put it in, but they weren't able to score on the power play. But after that, Connor Bedard gets the puck in the offensive zone. He uses a head fake to go inside out on one Slovak. Then he freezes another with a carry before putting it on his backhand. And he's all alone in against Adam Gayon. He pulls a forehand backhand move. Gayon goes for the poke check, misses. Bedard's got a wide open net and scores the goal of the tournament so far to win the game for Canada 4-3. Basically put the whole team on his back and scored that unassisted in overtime. And yeah, Canada comes away with this in OT. Now, the standouts for Canada. First, Connor Bedard. Obviously, let's get that out of the way. 2 goals and assist, overtime winner. What more is there to say? His 21 points, by the way, so far after his 3 in this game are 3 clear of Jaromir Jagr at the top of the scoreboard for draft eligibles in this tournament. Jagr had 18 in 7 games, and he still has 2 more games to play. So Bedard's going to be the runaway best draft eligible to ever play in this tournament. Another standout for Canada for me was Thomas Milic. His save percentage doesn't do him justice. He was amazing in this game. He made some great saves on some high danger chances off the rush, which is something I talked about for Slovakia as a game plan for them after the game against USA, which in my opinion, Slovakia was the type of team that was really going to benefit off catching teams flat-footed off the rush with their speed, with their intensity. And that was another example of that in this game, but Milic was just too good. Speaking of Slovakia, their standouts, Adam Gayon, for me, had a world-class performance in this game. He made 53 saves, and as funny as it sounds, he limited Connor Bedard to only 2 goals. Bedard could have had like 8 in this game if it wasn't for him, and he was especially solid on Bedard's curl and drag shots off the rush. Bedard's really good at curling the puck and sniping it, but he was reading him to perfection. For some ridiculous reason, in this game, 53 saves was not enough for Adam Gayon to win the MVP for the match for Slovakia, according to the IIHF. Hell, he finished the tournament with a World Juniors leading 4.63 goals saved above expected, according to Elite Prospects, which was a full 2 goal saves above expected than anyone else, any other netminder in this tournament. So he was tremendous for Slovakia. The other standout for me for Slovakia was Libor Nemec. He scored 2 goals. He was feisty. He was hard to contain around the net. It was a good game for him, and he was the one to end up with the MVP for this game for Slovakia. But what he did was nothing close to what Adam Gajan did for this team for Slovakia. And then finally, I think Philip Michar of the Montreal Canadiens had a great game. He had a fantastic assist in this game. He ended the tournament tied for first in points for Slovakia and just was overall great. Now, that's the end of our first segment, and we're going to go into the 2 blowouts from yesterday's games. First, USA versus Germany, and then second, we'll go to Czechia versus Switzerland. We'll get right to it right after these messages. Do you like betting? BetOnline.net is your number one source for any wager that interests you. From the NFL to the NBA to the MLB, and even NCAA football, UFC, golf, anything you like, they have you covered. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in depth analysis on every game on their website or app. They're, of course, a great source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting so you can keep up with bets as they unfold. They've got up to the minute scores for every sport out there. They're the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so moving on to the 2 blowouts from yesterday's quarterfinals games. We're going to start with USA versus Germany. USA took this one 11-1 against Germany in their quarterfinals game with their top line doing the job yet again. Their former top line in the NTDP in 2021-22, Logan Cooley of the Arizona Coyotes, Cutter Gauthier of the Philadelphia Flyers, and Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues combined for 10 points in this one, with Cooley getting 4, Gauthier getting 3, and Snuggerud getting 3. Now, for the first goal of the game, Ryan Ufko, who had a great game, he activates offensively and finds himself behind the opposing net with the puck. He feathers a slow pass towards the net, the front of the net. Logan Cooley gets it in the high slot, and then he dekes and scores to make it 1-0. Later on, it's 2-0 USA when Ryan Ufko again puts a perfect cross ice pass right on the tape of Red Savage for an easy goal. Savage actually scored 2 in this game. His second goal came shorthanded with USA up 6-0. Gavin Brindley, a 2023 NHL draft eligible, who I've talked about a lot. He floats a puck for a partial break for Savage. He puts it 5-hole on Nikita Kwap of the German team, and that is 7-0. Then later on, Logan Cooley completes his hat trick with USA up 9-0. He crashes the net and then he bats the puck out of midair to put it in the back of the net to help USA hit double digits in this game. Cutter Gauthier scored his first 2 goals of the tournament. Jackson Blake as well of Carolina Hurricanes. Dylan Duke of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Kenny Connors of the LA Kings. All of them also scored their first in the tournament in this game. And then Luca Hauf scored shorthanded for the Germans. That's their only goal late in the game after it was already 11-0. And that was that. USA went away with that win. So the standouts for USA, obviously the trio of Cooley, Snuggerud, and Gauthier. Let's start with Cooley. For me, he was the best forward in this game. He played some fantastic offensive hockey. He's got so much skill. And he's going to be a big ball of fun for Arizona for a long time. Moving on to Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues. He had another great game. I've talked about him as well before, just as a great sort of pro-ready player. He benefited from this blowout to showcase his hands a little bit more, which I really like. We've seen him drive the net. We've seen him carry the puck into the offensive zone and do the smart, pro-ready plays. But in this game, he had a bit more fun with it, and that's what I like to see. And I think for me, Cutter Gauthier was up there with Logan Cooley as the best forwards in this game. He led everyone who played yesterday in game score, according to Elite Prospects. Game score is a score given based on shots, shot assists, zone exits, zone entries, and defensive breakups. So all that combined leads to a score. It's sort of a compilation score. So let's say the more shots you get, the higher your score gets, that kind of thing. He was in the 4s. No one else was even, reaching that. Among all the games that were played yesterday, he was the only one with a 4 game score or plus. Then we got Ryan Ufko, Nashville 4th-round pick in 2021. He was the best player in this game, period. He had 5 primary assists, some world-class offensive skill that he showcased in this game. He was constantly driving the bus offensively, activating off the rush, getting below the goal line as a defender who's doing a lot of great stuff. So it's really impressive to see him sort of go about it. Another player who I think had a great game didn't really show up as much on the scoreboard, but it's the second round pick in 2021 of the Colorado Avalanche, and that would be Sean Behrens. He was a defensive monster in this game. The Germans were already struggling to create offensively, but with him on the ice, they just couldn't do anything. He was just giving them nothing to work with, and he was helping USA break the puck out a bunch in this game, making smart plays in transition to keep the puck away from their zone as much as possible. Now, to move on to Czechia versus Switzerland, the second blowout of this quarterfinals action. Now, 20 seconds into that game, Louis Robin of the Swiss national team opens the scoring for them, and immediately you start thinking, are we going to get another upset in this tournament in the quarterfinals this time? Really? But it turns out it would be the only goal of the game for Switzerland as Czechia chained together 9 consecutive goals to take this game 9-1. First, Yuri Kulich scored in order to make it 1-1, and then Marcel scores shorthanded. By the way, best name of the tournament. The name's so good to say it twice. Marcel. Shorthanded goal puts the team up 2-1. Peter Hauser, who's been really impressive, he's a New Jersey Devils prospect. He scored to make it 3-1. And then David Jiricek of the Columbus Blue Jackets, the recent first round pick. Yuri Kulich again. Then Gabriel Sturck added one, and Edward Schale, who is a 2023 NHL draft eligible, a top player from that draft. He's in my top 10. He started the last game for Czechia as the 13th forward on the roster, and he ended up playing for an extended period of time on this first line with Yuri Kulich. And Matthias Shapovalov. He gets a pass from Yuri Kulich. He opens up his hips and he wrists one clean into the top corner to just extend the lead for Czechia by a wide margin. Then Marcel again scored a second of the game, and then Gabriel Sturck as well. Both of them are undrafted, by the way, but either way, Czechia closes one off 9-1 with their 2 goals in the third period. So the standouts for Czechia, we have Yuri Kulich, who just was so good in this one. He was their best player. His speed, his skill earned him 2 goals and 2 assists in the game. He missed a lot of very good chances, though, so he could have had much more than 2 goals and 2 assists. Edward Schale, his teammate on that line, was awesome too in this game. I mean, he got his first goal of the tournament, first and foremost. That's good for him. He assisted on Kulich's second goal, but he could have had a lot more than the amount of points he had because Kulich was missing a lot of his clear shots in the slot off excellent passes from Schale in this game. Another player who performed extremely well for me was Marcel. 2 goals and an assist in this game. He was all over the ice, making good plays in all 3 zones. Also, the Yuri Tihacek and David Jiricek pairing was amazing yet again. I'll say it again, but Yuri Tihacek is absolutely worth a draft pick for an NHL team. If you have a 7th rounder, if you're going to throw it away on some 20-year-olds who is performing sort of below average in a junior team, you might as well just go for Yuri Tihacek. He's already playing pro. He's already playing very well. And again, was just excellent in this tournament and in this game so far. Another standout, very surprising, but Thomas Suchanek picked up his 4th assist of the tournament. He's 6th on his team in scoring. You know what's special about that? Thomas Suchanek is a goalie. A goalie in this tournament has 4 assists. It's just amazing. Now, the standouts for Switzerland, we'll start with the standouts for the tournament, honestly, because I don't have much to say about Switzerland in this game. There's no one that really stood out to me. But in this tournament, there's 3 players I really liked. First and foremost, Lorenzo Canonica, who was really good all tournament for Switzerland. 3 points in 5 games. He was making great passes and using his hands generously in the offensive zone, which is always great to watch. Skill wins games in these tournaments, and it was evident based on that. Another player who really performed well, in my opinion, was Attilio Biasca, the captain of this team for Switzerland. He led all Swiss players in scoring at this tournament with 4 and 5 games. He was determined. He was good along the boards. He was smart defensively. He was chipping in with very important goals, including the OT game winner versus Finland in that upset. And then finally, the final player for me for Switzerland who really stood out from the bunch is Leon Bixel of the Dallas Stars. He was their best defender, and there were some games where he seemed like the only reason that they were able to keep things close. Versus Finland, I don't think they win that one without Leon Bixel in the lineup. But that's it for our second segment, and we're going to go into our third segment, breaking down the game between Sweden and Finland, a really tight game between 2 rival countries, right after these messages. All right, so for our final segment, I want to end things off with Sweden versus Finland, a really tight game between two rival countries, something that you always really love to see at these World Juniors. In the first period, it started off with Ville Koivunen of the Carolina Hurricanes putting a puck towards the net with traffic in front. His line mate Joakim Kamel, first round pick of the Nashville Predators in this last draft, he tips it towards a far post, and Oliver Kapanen, the second round pick of the Montreal Canadiens, collects the puck and roofs it to put Finland 1-0 up early. Before the end of the first, so Ludwig Jansson, who has had a great tournament, he takes a pass in the offensive zone and then walks in from the blue line. He puts a shot pass right past Jani Lampinen's pad, and Leo Carlson, 2023 NHL draft eligible in my top five, tips it home to tie it heading into first intermission. There were no goals in the second period, though, but Finland dominated in that period. They were all over the puck. Defensively, we're making great plays. We're breaking out the puck quickly, and we're spending a lot of time in the offensive zone. Took a lot of their shots in that period. And then early in the third, Werner Miettinen finally builds off of that pressure that they built in the second period, and he intercepts a pass in the neutral zone once again, and he springs Nico Huhtanen, seventh round pick of the Tampa Bay Lightning, for a zone entry. Huhtanen walks in and just snipes it past Carl Lindbaum to make it 2-1 for Finland. But then once again, before the end of the period, Leo Carlson gets the goal with about 4 minutes left on the clock as Philip Bistedt gets free and one times a puck on net. Carlson times his net drive with that shot, and then he has a wide open cage and just has to tap it in for a second of the game. Carlson was great in this game so far. We'll talk about it a bit later on, but he was tremendous. So yeah, the game's tied yet again. But this time, though, Sweden keeps pushing despite having taken a penalty. They were putting the pressure on Finland in that final minute. And then Aleksi Haimasalmi, the Finnish defender on their power play for the Carolina Hurricanes, he bobbles a puck at the offensive blue line, and Victor Kranbori of the Chicago Blackhawks is all over that. He takes that puck, goes on a breakaway, doesn't look back, scores 5-hole on Jani Lempinen to give Sweden the lead with 1 minute and 5 seconds left in the game. Sweden manages to hang on later on with some great plays by Adam Engstrom, notably of the Montreal Canadiens, and they win this one 3-2 in regulation. The shots were 35-20 for Finland, though, who really fumbled this game in the last 4 minutes. They were leading 2-1. They were playing comfortably. They had the lead in shots on goals. They were winning faceoffs. But teams fumbling leads, late in games is kind of expected at this tournament because of how little preparation these teams have heading into these things. They've got a couple games to get on their game and understand the systems, but a lot of the time, what you have on your lineup are 18, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds in some cases, who have not been together for long enough, who are still sort of raw in their game. They're still making mistakes. This is the result. You get games full of lucky bounces and late comebacks and stuff like that. It's just how it goes. Now the standouts for Sweden. First and foremost, Leo Carlson. Carlson was just amazing in this game. Just an amazing performance for a kid who celebrated his 18th birthday a week ago. He's one of the youngest players in this tournament. He was Sweden's best player tonight. He was all over the ice. He was creating chances off his stick on almost every shift. He was pushing the pace. He was driving the net, doing all the things right that you want from a center. And he was doing it on Philip Bistedt's left wing. Speaking of which, Philip Bistedt was another tremendous performance in this game. He paired really well with Leo Carlson in this one. He was getting open and firing shots whenever he could. He was stopping up and finding passes left and right to keep plays active in the offensive zone. Just constantly, just sort of a facilitator on that line with Carlson and Oscar Pettersson, a prospect of the Ottawa Senators. Moving on to our other standout for Sweden, Ludwig Jansson. For me, he's just been one of, if not the best defender for Sweden in this tournament. He was great. He was constantly activating offensively, constantly pushing the pace in the offensive zone. He was joining rushes all the time, and that got him a primary assist as a result of that constant offensive mindset. It's something he does really well, and so far in this tournament, it's translated very well. Just this game is just another example of that. And then finally, Adam Engstrom, he was just amazing defensively for Sweden. The Habs prospect stopped a wraparound by diving on the goal line, literally head first. He dislodged the net, but didn't get a penalty for it, surprisingly. So, he'll take that. But honestly, he was just tremendous defensively, especially off the rush. His gap controls improved so much since his draft year. When I scouted him in his draft year, I wasn't impressed with his ability to stick with players off the rush. He uses his brain very well, he uses his skating pretty well, but his stick positioning was kind of off, and especially that just the ability to manage that gap to stay close to his checks was kind of rough. So that really wasn't sort of impressive for me in Engström case in his draft year. But since then, especially in this tournament, it's been obvious that he's been working on that gap control. He's playing top minutes for Rugla in the SHL right now. As a 19-year-old defenseman, it's just very impressive to watch from him. Now for the standouts for Finland. I'll start with the standouts for this game, then move on to the standouts for the tournament. So in this game, the Oliver Kapanen, Ville Koivunen, and Joakim Kemell line, the triple K line, don't take that out of context. Their first line in this tournament was really impressive. First, Oliver Kapanen showed a lot of defensive smarts in this game. He won a lot of faceoffs. He played a simple game in the offensive zone where he drove the net, he jumped on rebounds, he passed it low to high, kept plays alive in the offensive zone. Just a very simple sort of meat and potatoes game. You pair that with Ville Koivunen's tremendous playmaking ability, his transition pace, the way he carried pucks into the offensive zone in this game regularly, the way he drove defenders back with a change of pace, just consistently found teammates in open ice. It was just a great game from Koivunen as well. He pairs really well with that defensive side of Kapanen. And then Joakim Kemell was a finishing touch on most plays in this game. He was the one to put shots on net or make the final pass in the offensive zone. He didn't get a goal, but it was also impressive to see him just not shy away from driving the net offensively, creating chaos in the offensive zone. All that was really great from him. You also got Werner Miettinen, who in this game made a lot of great defensive plays, especially on that goal by Nico Huftanen. He just cuts off a pass in the neutral zone, and then springs Huftanen by spinning around, just spotting him immediately. It was a really smart, very very heads up play from him. It was really impressed with his hockey sense in this game. It was really tremendous. Now for the tournament, obviously that first line, the Triple K line, Kapanen, Koivunen, and Kemell, they've been money for this team ever since they were put together in the group stage. Just a great tournament from them. Nico Huftanen really impressed me for the Tampa Bay Lightning in this tournament. He offered a great power forward option to the Finns, which they didn't really have as much. He would always drive the offensive zone with speed off the rush. He always found a way to showcase his plus shot in this tournament multiple times. And earned 3 goals as a result. And then finally, we have Kalle Ervasti, a defenseman for Finland, who scored 3 points in 4 games for them. He played really well off the rush, going both ways. He jumped into attacks a whole lot, really pushed the pace off the rush, especially offensively. He was activating into plays a lot. So that was really impressive with this game. But that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you very much for sticking all the way to the end. If you like what you've been listening to, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're following along on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always very much appreciated. For your second listen of the day, though, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all of your news and updates in all of your favorite leagues, so you can stay updated and informed on the sports that you love. Now, this has been Locked On NHL Prospects with Hadi Kalakesh, and I hope you tune in next time.